In this video, we will be diving into HTML forms. Specifically, we'll explore how to create interactive forms that collect user input on the web. Forms are a fundamental part of web development, enabling us to gather data from users in a structured and organized manner. HTML forms are used to collect user input data and send it to a server for processing. They are essential for various functionalities, including user registration, login systems, search functionality, and data submission. Let's take a look at a basic form structure. The form element is defined using the form tag. The action attribute specifies the URL where the form data will be sent when the form is submitted. The method attribute defines the HTTP method used to send the data, such as POST. Inside the form element, you can include various form elements like labels and input fields. The label element provides a caption for an input field, and the input element is used to collect user input. The type attribute specifies the type of input, such as text for a single-line text field. Finally, the submit button allows users to submit the form data. Forms are important because they allow you to get information from the user. Let's explore some basic form elements you can use to gather different types of data. First, we have the text input element, which is used for collecting single-line text data like names, emails, or short answers. The code shows how to create a label for the input field using the label tag, and an input field with the type attribute set to text. The ID and name attributes are used to identify the input field, and the placeholder attribute provides a hint to the user. Next, we have the password input element, which is similar to the text input but masks the characters for security when entering passwords. The code is similar to the text input, but the type attribute is set to password. Then we have the checkbox element, which allows users to select multiple options from a set. Each checkbox is independent. The code shows how to create a checkbox with the type attribute set to checkbox. Finally, we have the radio button element, which allows users to select only one option from a group. All radio buttons in a group share the same name. The code shows how to create radio buttons with the type attribute set to radio and the same name attribute. Let's explore some more form elements that you can use to gather different types of data. First, we have the text area element, which is used for multi-line text input like comments, messages, or descriptions. The code shows how to create a label for the text area using the label tag, and a text area element with the rows and columns attributes to specify the size. Next, we have the select drop-down element, which creates a drop-down list allowing users to select one option from many choices. The code shows how to create a label for the select element using the label tag, and a select element with option elements inside to define the available choices. Then we have the date input element, which provides a date picker interface for selecting dates in a standardized format. The code shows how to create a label for the date input using the label tag, and an input element with the type attribute set to date. Finally, we have the submit button element, which sends the form data to the server when clicked. The form's action attribute specifies where to send the data. The code shows how to create a submit button using the input element with the type attribute set to submit, or using the button element with the type attribute set to submit. HTML forms have several attributes that control their behavior and functionality. Some important form attributes include action, which specifies the URL where the form data is sent for processing. Method, which defines the HTTP method used to submit the form data such as GET or POST. Name, which identifies the form uniquely. Target, which specifies where to display the response after submitting the form. Enctype, which defines how the form data is encoded before sending it to the server. And autocomplete, which enables or disables autocomplete for the form. Here's an example of a form element with some of these attributes set. The action attribute specifies the URL where the form data will be sent. The method attribute is set to POST. The name attribute identifies the form as registration. The target attribute specifies that the response should be displayed in the same window. The Enctype attribute is set to multi-part form data for file uploads, and the autocomplete attribute is enabled. Input elements also have several attributes that control their behavior and functionality. Some common input attributes include type, which defines the type of input field such as text, password, email, etc. Name, which identifies the input field uniquely. Value, which sets the default value of the input field. Placeholder, which provides a hint text inside the input field. Required, which makes the input field mandatory. Disabled, which makes the input field non-editable. And read-only, which makes the input field read-only. Here's an example of a text input with some of these attributes set. The type attribute is set to text. The name attribute identifies the input field as username. The value attribute sets the default value to John Doe. The placeholder attribute provides a hint text enter username. The required attribute makes the input field mandatory. The minimum length and maximum length attributes set the length limits. Let's take a look at a complete form example that includes various form elements and attributes. This example shows a basic registration form with fields for full name, email, and password. The form element has the action attribute set to register and the method attribute set to post. Inside the form, there are label and input elements for each field. The input elements have the type, ID, name, and required attributes set appropriately. Finally, there is a submit button with the type attribute set to submit and the text register. This example demonstrates how to create a simple registration form using HTML forms. Form validation is the process of ensuring that user input data meets certain criteria before submitting it to the server. HTML5 provides built-in form validation features that can be used to validate form data on the client side. Some HTML5 form validation attributes include required, which makes the input field mandatory. Minimum and maximum, which set the minimum and maximum values for numeric input fields. Minimum length and maximum length, which set the text length limits for text input fields. Pattern, which specifies a regular expression pattern that the input field must match. And type, which provides implicit validation for certain input types like email and URL. Here are some examples of using these attributes for form validation. The first example shows how to use the type attribute to validate an email input field. The second example shows how to use the minimum and maximum attributes to set the range for a number input field. The third example shows how to use the minimum length and maximum length attributes to set the length limits for a text input field. And the last example shows how to use the pattern attribute to validate a text input field using a regular expression. Styling HTML forms is important for creating a visually appealing and user-friendly experience. Here are some form styling best practices. Use consistent styling for all inputs. Add proper spacing between elements. Style focus states for better user experience. Use clear visual feedback for validation. Ensure adequate contrast for readability, and make clickable areas large enough. Here is an example of how to style HTML forms using CSS. The form element has a maximum width, margin, and padding set. The input, select, and text area elements have a width, padding, margin, border, and border radius set. The input focus state has a border color, box shadow, and outline set. In this video, we've covered the basics of HTML forms, including form structure, input types, attributes, validation techniques, and styling. We discussed how to create interactive forms that collect user input on the web, and how to validate and style them for a better user experience. Next, we will explore form handling with JavaScript, server-side form processing, advanced form validation, accessibility considerations, and building complex forms. The next topic is JavaScript form handling and validation. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit CodeLucky.com for more such useful content.